This video on child soldiers is inspired by a book called A Cardboard Palace by Elaine L. Webster. The book is based in Paris about a young boy called George who lives with other children in a shanty town on the outskirts of the city. The children are controlled by a man named Bill, who throughout the book forces them to commit crimes for him. The book raises many world issues such as sexism, domestic violence, forced marriage, child trafficking, child labour, theft, and more. Whilst child soldiers are not directly raised as an issue in the book, it is definitely linked to child trafficking and child labour. Child soldiers are children, both boys and girls, that are forced to fight for their country's military or rebel forces in a war. Child soldiers are most commonly found throughout Africa, in countries such as Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Chad, Central African Republic, Iraq, Libya, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and more. They are not always used to fight on the front line, and are often used as messengers, spies, lookouts, suicide bombers, human shields, and sexual slaves. Whilst these children are typically forced to join, due to a lack of education and knowledge, some children volunteer to join the army, believing it will mean a better life. UNICEF estimates that roughly 250,000 children, boys and girls under the age of 18, are currently involved in over 30 conflicts over the world. This number is astonishing, and the recruitment of these child soldiers violates several key human rights. The issue of child soldiers was recently highlighted in an SBS documentary, Look Me in the Eyes. An unorthodox social experiment, this program saw a former child soldier, Ayik, sit face to face with a man, Anyang, who whipped and beat him to the point of breathlessness before tying him up in the hot Sudanese sun as punishment for being disobedient. In the program, Ayik describes how Anyang's torture, beatings, and imprisonment stole his innocence and his childhood. Anyang was sadly also a child soldier. He was recruited in 1983 on the day he lost his parent and his siblings. 2 years later, when he was 16 years old, he was promoted and became a guard. As a guard, he had to follow orders of torture on the other child soldiers, Ayik included. Otherwise, he himself would have been punished. Eventually, Ayik and Anyang found themselves in Australia, where Ayik saw Anyang at church. From there, they appeared on the program.
I'm asking you, can you forgive me? Let us start a new chapter of life, please. Please.
You know, the first time I saw you in church, my brain went blank. You know, because I thought, at first I didn't believe you're alive. I thought you're dead somewhere. And I used to pray to God that you get killed in the war. If you don't get killed, if I get deployed with you, I'll kill you myself. I swear to God, Anyang, there's no way you would have lived. I would have used everything. But it didn't happen. And being here in Australia has taught me a lot of things. That I have life now.
The civil war between North and South Sudan lasted for about 50 years, making it the longest civil war in Africa's history. Throughout this time, there was a heavy use of child soldiers, both by the military and rebel forces. It is estimated 6,500 children were associated with North Sudan's military during the war. At the end of the war, 3 peace agreements were signed: the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, Eastern Sudan Peace Agreement, and the Darfur Peace Agreement. Since the signing of these, approximately 1,000 children have been able to return back to their home. Whilst Chad has not had a major war of its own, it shares a large border with Sudan, which meant the war in Sudan spilled over the border into Chad. Chad is one of the poorest countries in Africa. Over 50% of the population earn less than $1 a day. Also, more than half of the population is 15 years old or younger, which increases the potential for child soldiers to be recruited to fight. Over 800 children have been demobilized since 2007. In a country with such a young population and no education, it is inevitable that many children are going to become involved in this. UNICEF is heavily involved in fixing the issue in Sudan and Chad, and also in all of the other countries affected. UNICEF is working with Sudan Armed Forces to get them to agree to adopt an action plan to stop the recruitment of child soldiers. UNICEF also helped demobilize 1,200 children in South Sudan since 2005. In Chad, UNICEF supports the Ministry of Social Action for the withdrawal process of children from armed forces. There are also many other charities raising awareness and helping with this major global issue as well to achieve the goal of a world free of child soldiers. There are several ways the community can get involved to help this issue. You can sign a petition to stop weapons trade to Yemen, which is a country greatly affected by child soldiers. This can be done on the War Child website. You can also donate money or materials or even take part in fundraising or raising awareness. More information on how you can do this can be found on the charity website shown below and in the description. Your support would be greatly appreciated.